All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. My name is Alex, and today we're talking about the end game inside of Wild Hearts. Now, specifically, I want to talk about some things that could actually change in the end game to make it a little bit more bearable and a lot more enjoyable. Now, the end game pretty much consists of either farming food, farming volatile Kemono for orbs and keys, or farming talismans, and that's pretty much the end game in a nutshell. And before we even get into the list, I absolutely got to give it to these guys because they have been updating the game pretty regularly. They've been making a whole bunch of changes. They adjusted the end game, so I will say that they have been doing a pretty good job listening to us and implementing changes in the game. And I definitely appreciate those guys for that one, man, because that is something that's pretty rare, in today's gaming landscape. Most of the time developers are like, yeah, we hear you, we're listening, but then they they're just kind of going about their day. But with that being said, I do play this game a lot, and there are some things that stick out in the end game that kind of get a little bit tedious and more annoying than they should be. So with that being said, we're going to jump right into the first topic, and that is the food system needs to be tweaked a little bit. Now, it's always funny because in my videos, people always say, bro, eat food, eat your food, don't forget to eat food. This man's never eaten food. And I always laugh because, when I jump on, I do a lot of hunts back to back. I jump in, I do like 10, 15 hunts just back to back nonstop. And if you don't know, every time you eat food and you finish off a hunt, that food is fully consumed and is gone, and you have to eat another one. So for me, somebody who hunts, just rapid hunts back to back, that the food system, I just don't even interact with it. But if they could somehow implement a system in the game where the food doesn't consume, after the hunt is actually completed, that would be amazing. If they could change it to where it is it's time based, meaning you can eat your food and it's active for like 30 whole minutes, that would actually make the current food situation like 10 times more bearable for me. And I'm pretty sure there's no one who still plays this game that would have a complaint about the food buff lasting longer. Now, whether or not they can implement something like this at this point inside the game, who knows, but it would absolutely be a pretty good quality of life change. Now, next up on the list is the actual talisman system in the game, man. There is way too many talismans in this game, and it is absolutely insane. Now, having a lot of talismans isn't necessarily a bad thing, but there's too many variations of the same talisman. Now, just a quick example of what I mean by this, I got 3 Verve and Grabmaster talismans right here. They all have Verve at 3%, but then this one has Grabmaster at 4%, this one has Grabmaster at 3%, and this one has Grabmaster at 2%. Way too many variations of the same talisman. If they could somehow just simplify the talismans, make it one talisman that has like Verve at 5%, Grabmaster at 5%, make that the only version of that talisman that can drop. And if you get that dropped and you have that talisman, then when you get another version of that same talisman, it just stacks, meaning you could have a stack of like 15 of the same talisman. It's going to take up way less space. And I think just simplifying all of these talismans, making these roles more simpler, more static, but just allow you to collect multiples of the same role, I think that is just the way to go. There's just way too many skills in this game, way too many variations, way too many different percentages, and it's absolutely insane. Now, I do know that inventory space is always one of those weird things inside a video game. Sometimes it's just impossible to add more, sometimes it's just impossible to change what they already have, in the base code. Now, on everything on the list, this is probably the least likely to happen, but you never know. Maybe we get a Wild Hearts 2, maybe we get a Wild Hearts 2.0 where they change a whole bunch of things. Who knows, man? Anything could happen, but simplifying the talisman system would absolutely be a welcome change. Now, staying on the topic of talismans, another system in this game that needs some absolute love, or at least some explanation, is the visitor system. Now, if you're unclear what the visitor missions are, whenever you go out, you do some hunts, you come back to your main hub in Minoto, it'll say that a guest has arrived inside of your city, and you can accept their quest to help them hunt a certain Kemono. Now, the thing is, those quests have a completely separate loot pool when it comes to talisman, and some of the talismans inside that pool are actually really good for specific weapon classes. But the fact that so many good talismans are tied down to the guest system is I think that's a pretty big L. And one change I would like to see in this system is to just have more than one visitor show up. Maybe put like a board there where it's like, like 5 to 10 Kemonos you could choose from. Maybe 10 is a bit much, but have more than one option when it comes down to those quests. Because if you weren't aware, that loot pool for the visitor quest missions is absolutely huge, dude. There's so many talismans in there. And the fact that it's seemingly RNG based depending on what visitor you get, what Kemono they're asking you to hunt, what talisman is actually going to drop from that Kemono, because it's not guaranteed to drop the one you're looking for. It's just way too many levels of RNG. And again, this is something else that just needs to be simplified, made more streamlined. And I think more people would be more engaged in those missions. Because while I did do a whole bunch of them when I first started the game, I haven't done one of those missions in probably about a month now, and it's just so many talismans that I'm missing. But I'm just like, dude, this is impossible to track, this is impossible to target farm, this is impossible to get what I'm looking for. And at the end of the day, it kind of ended up just like the food situation. Like, I just don't pay attention to it, and I kind of forget that it's there. But it's definitely a whole system, but it's just way too much going on with that, man. If we can simplify that or give us some more options to choose from, that would be ideal, and overall would be another really good quality of life change. Now, the last thing on talisman before we move on is, one, I think talisman should be a guaranteed drop whenever you kill a Kemono, because sometimes you actually don't get a talisman. And on top of that, I think the Kemono should drop more than just one talisman at a time. Now, I don't know what the exact number would actually be, but I would say maybe like 2 to 3 more talismans per run. But I think that would be pretty good, pretty fair, especially for the people who are still playing, still grinding the game out. Hook us up with some more loot, and I don't think anybody would be mad about that one at all. Now, next up on the list is something that is absolutely probably never going to happen. But if this was implemented in the game at launch, I think this would have been a complete game changer. Builds would have been way better off. And I think overall, it just would have helped build diversity just in general. Now, I don't know how to say this in any other way other than just saying that the base armor sets, like the normal version of the armor sets, not the human path, not the Kemono path, just the base set of the armors, they all kind of suck except for one armor set. And that armor set is the Cutthroat set. Now, if you look at this set, it doesn't look like anything flashy, doesn't look like anything good. It's just a set that is based purely on stamina. All the skills here are stamina based. But the reason I say that this set should have been what every other set in the game should have strived to be, this should have been like the normal. If you look at it, just the normal set, it has no human path skills, has no Kemono path skills. These are all universal skills on the armor set. And I believe they should have made every single set in this game similar to this at the base level. Now, of course, the skills will be different depending on what armor set that you're actually building, but the difference would come in when you actually went Kemono path or human path. For example, taking a look at the chest piece, it has fatigue recovery 10%, leeway 5%, bare thread 10%. Now, if you went human path, it should keep all of those same skills, but just add 2 more human path perks to that armor set. Same thing with the Kemono path. Take those same 3 base skills, add 2 Kemono path skills to make the armor pieces way different. Now, if every other armor set in the game was like this, it just had the base skills on the base armor, then once you chose a path, you got extra skills. Build diversity would have automatically been multiplied. Of course, you would have to make human path and Kemono path for every single piece of armor. But I think in the long run, man, that would have made build diversity, 10 times better. Because clearly the Cutthroat set is a stamina based set. We could have had like Karakuri focus sets, attack focus sets, defense focus sets, utility focus sets, support focus sets, all type of different sets that you could just, build into. But the fact that some of these armor pieces have Kemono and human path traits on them, it kind of makes it really weird and pretty wonky. And it also kind of forces everybody to use the same pieces of armor over and over again. No diversity whatsoever. And then on top of that, we also have a whole bunch of skills that are just almost completely useless. You got things like speed swimmer, blackout recovery, rude health. Like, some of these things are just way too niche, way too weak. And again, it just makes everybody funnel to the same sets of armor, because the other armors in the game, 1, some of the skills are just kind of useless and hard to activate, and 2, some of them just need to be buffed. Now, of course, a change like this is pretty invasive, and it's probably way too late to implement something like this inside the game. But if we did have a system like this, man, I think that would absolutely be a W, and build diversity would definitely be a thing. Now, with that being said, we're going to move on to the next topic, and that is that elemental weapons need a buff. Now, there are some decent elemental weapons in the game, but if we're being honest, all the rock weapons are trash, all the leaf weapons are trash. Most of the wind weapons are trash. A couple of the water weapons are actually decent, but mainly the biggest change I would like to see is the removal of the elemental wielder skills, meaning like the flame wielder, the ice wielder, entangler. all of those things, I feel like those should just be intrinsic on whatever element weapon you're using. If you're using a fire weapon, you shouldn't also have to build into flame wielder. The weapon is already fire. It should be able to set the kimonos on fire, you know, at base. I think it's a waste of your skill slot. I think it's a waste of your talisman slots. And there's pretty much no reason those shouldn't be intrinsic on the weapons. The water weapon should freeze, the fire weapon should burn, the grass weapon should use entangler, the earth weapon should maybe use the fatigue, and the wind weapons, there's no real wind element, but we also have poison right there. Poison is a little bit different, but you know what I mean, man? It seems like it's just way too much to build into elemental weapons, and then unless you're using specific elemental weapons, you're already losing so much damage. That's mostly just like why even try to build out elemental weapons in the first place. So elemental weapons in general just need a overhaul, need a buff. And that doesn't mean that the buff just needs to be more damage, but some type of utility, some type of reason to actually use the elemental weapon. I got two more things I want to talk about, and one of them is the gold cost in the game. I think just overall in general, the gold cost for everything needs to be cut by at least 50%. I mean, at least 75% would be ideal, but 50% would also be nice, because everything in this game costs gold. Dismantling your weapon costs gold, building your weapon costs gold, armor cladding costs gold, and not a little bit of gold either. So if they were able to adjust the prices of some things inside the game, I think overall that would be a net positive. And it also goes hand in hand with the last thing I want to talk about, and that is the drop rates from the kimono. I know they don't want to give us too much too fast, but at this point I don't think it's going to hurt anybody if the kimono is dropping, 2 to 3 times more drops. I think overall that would just be healthier for the game. If people are going to leave a game, you at least want them to leave happy. They did everything they wanted to do, they got all their builds done. They beat the game a couple times over, and they're going to leave now because they're bored, but they will be back whenever there's an update, whenever there's a sequel. That's usually the best way to go. You don't want people to leave angry and and just frustrated. That never works out. And yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, man. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what else you would change about the game, some things you would like to see, some features you would like to see. And yeah, man, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that shenanigans down below. And I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.